وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه والنور أرش أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبنا وسيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا ومولانا أبو القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين أما بعد. قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, I would like to greet you all with the warmest of Islamic greetings, and that is none other than Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to start in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, for without His mercy and kindness, this final opportunity would not be presented to us, where we as fellow Muslims on the second last night of Ramadan sit around each other in front of our laptops, in front of our smartphones, and engage in His remembrance, eager to become closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So therefore, we give thanks to Allah for allowing us to spend the last 14 nights together. And indeed, our intentions with this is not only to increase our love for the religion of Islam and the Holy Prophet, but it is also to better our understanding and increase our iman, so that we can all hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi ajalallahu ta'ala faraja. In fact, the Bani Israel, the children of Israel, has been famously noted by Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam that the time period of of Prophet Yusuf to Prophet Musa was told that it was going to be, I believe, 500 years. And because the people prayed and because the people begged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of the next prophet for Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave 170 years, almost one third of those years were forgiven, and Prophet Musa came earlier than expected. And therefore, as the Shias of Akhir Zaman, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us for joining each other these nights and engaging in His remembrance and doing the amal on Laylatul Qadr. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we truly ask is that you hasten the reappearance of our beloved 12th Imam, Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, Ajlallahu ta'ala faraja. Before I start tonight's lecture topic, I have been getting some personal text messages with regards to the last two nights' topic, being that of uh, black magic, sorcery, these unholy demonic tendencies that we find today in our communities without really realizing it. I did touch on them in the short time that I had. The reality is these are very deep topics that can go on. I could spend the entire 30 nights of Ramadan talking about it. But I prefer to focus on the positive more so than thinking about all the horrendous things in the world today. Again, life is neutral. It's all about how we depict it. And so, well, some of the questions I've been getting is, what do I do if I feel like I do have it? And I didn't discuss those remedies for one good purpose, because as a person who has been doing nutritional counseling for several years, I understand one thing is that one solution does not fit all. Okay, I have to be able to qualify the person for the issues they're having prior to just saying anybody who feels a certain way, listen to X, Y, and Z. That's not the way it works. If you're experiencing marital problems, etc., there are symptoms that you can look up. There are symptoms you can ask me, and that's not to say that every single marital problem is because of jinns and black magic. No, sometimes the people are compatible. Sometimes the in-laws are getting involved excessively. Sometimes there's a lack of maturity on either end. So we can't just sit there saying, "Oh, I have marriage problems. There's a jinn in my relationship," or some witch did something. So there are qualifying questions, and the reason why I didn't give those remedies is because I didn't want everyone to think that if you have some sort of problem, like you should go and uh, do these things that are in the hadith, because these hadith are to be taken seriously and not to be taken over. Simple arbitrary marital problems that you can go to counseling, or you can just work with each other and get better at. But if there's certainty about it, inshallah, tomorrow in the Q&A, I encourage, tomorrow is going to be a Q&A, by the way. It's not going to be a lecture. I encourage everybody to come and encourage everyone to come. And you can blast me with as many questions on the matter. Specific questions, you can ask me if you like experience a certain symptom. I am more than happy to address those specifically. I am not happy just broadly telling you remedies on a lecture without getting to know the situation better. So I am happy to answer any questions about this field in tomorrow's Q&A. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it privately. You can obtain my information. And inshallah ta'ala, we will do our best to help people get on track. But the three most important things that I did mention once again is if you are having fear of this before you come and see any counselor about it, if you're having fear about this, always understand one thing: you must turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have turned to people to help you, not in the sense that, like, they're giving you remedies, but in the sense that, oh, let me read your mind, let me read your soul, I need your husband's first and last name before I can help, stuff like that. There was actually one case in Toronto where this old lady manipulated a Shia woman who was having difficulty with her husband. She took $10,000 from these people just to come around the house and put things around their house to help ward off evil spirits. This is not my approach, brothers and sisters, and I don't want anything. Uh, there's a reason why I don't. This isn't a marketing platform for me. I will tell you the first and foremost thing is go back to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. See if you're doing any sins. See if you're committing to things that you're not realizing. One case I saw was that the individual had an addiction to marijuana and they were beginning to hallucinate. Okay, you're not supposed to be supplementing these things if you have any kind of mental issues or if you feel like there's these supernatural activities. Don't supplement with marijuana. Go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's an issue, there's an addiction you're having, go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask for help. Ayatul Kursi, always make sure you're hitting the 5 times a day prayer. And lastly, what I'll tell everyone to do is make sure you give sadaqah on a daily basis because it takes harm away from you. It keeps disease away from you. It keeps evil eye away from you and all this. So these are the three main things I'll tell everyone to do as a starting thing. If these three things do not work, then I would suggest you need extra help. Okay? So let's hope, inshallah ta'ala, these things help everyone. Take salat seriously. A famous scholar of us said that if you don't, this is the advice I give to you. If you take care of your salat takes care of you. If it doesn't, I allow you to come spit on my grave. That's what one of the scholars said uh, to his students once. So definitely salat, salat, salat. Do not abandon it. You think nothing happens, but it becomes a snowball effect once you do abandon it. Do not ever uh, abuse your salat. In any case, tonight's topic, again, this will be my last lecture for tonight, and tomorrow will be, I believe, a 1 hour Q&A. I don't think Sheikh Bakr Najat will be joining us, so definitely come in with as many questions as you can. Okay, I don't want to be sitting here looking at a blank screen. So tonight's topic is going to be about my reflections about this blessed month of Ramadan, about what I've learned, about how we can take what Allah has prescribed to us in the month of Ramadan into our everyday life, things on principle that Allah is trying to show us. And inshallah, this will help with life. Because one thing we do is we focus in our religious circles, we always think about things in a conceptual format, but not necessarily in practice. So, what I can derive firstly from the blessed month of Ramadan is that you can achieve anything. You can achieve anything your mind uh, that you desire to. You can do it. Okay. But the key principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to teach us here is that you must not think in a matter that it is an impossibility. See, when you tell back in the day when we used to tell our non-Muslim friends about this month of Ramadan, the first thing they would say is, I don't get how you can do that. It's impossible. You can't drink water for 16, 17 hours a day. I can't even go 2 hours without drinking. So that mindset immediately is telling you that this person has put on this concept of abstaining from water and eating so far up on a pedestal, right, that they can't even bring themselves to they can't even bring themselves to imagine how us Muslims do it. Are we Muslims a special breed of genetically modified human beings that can know. We have all we have is willpower and the belief that we can do it. For if we could not do it, we believe that Allah would not have prescribed it upon us. And fasting is a practice that Allah has not only prescribed to Muslims, but He has prescribed to people before us, as He mentions in the Quran. So the first thing in life that I can learn from this, brothers and sisters, it is not necessarily the desire for food. It is not necessarily the hunger that Allah is trying to teach us about. It is that when you can see yourself at the end of the outcome and knowing that you can reach it in any aspect of life, then indeed you will be successful. Yes. For example, if you're going on a plane ride to Europe, somewhere in Europe, right? Normally, you would think that this would take hours and hours and hours to go. You have a layover in a certain airport. It's very tiring, but the person that is going on it does not focus on the fatigue. Now, they don't dread the fatigue. What they look forward to is that at the end of all of this struggle, there is an outcome. The outcome is I will get to my destination. You understand? In Ramadan, we go hours upon hours of abstaining from these things, like very normal things that we do every day, like drinking water, eating, going out for runs. We have to wait. We have to keep it on lockdown for a certain period. Why? Because at the end, we know the destination is that I will be sitting with friends and family, and I will be engorging myself with food, which is not good practice, by the way. But that's the end. That's what you have in your mind. You can see that light at the end of the tunnel, and this applies to every aspect of life, not only in this life but in the akhirah. Because right now, when Muslim, especially the youth, when they ask me, why does Allah forbid this? Why can't I do this? These are very small pleasures. These are such small pleasures, right? And someone can argue that drinking and eating is far more important than half the things, like, oh, why can't we have pork? I really want to try pork. It's silly. It's silly. Allah says go and eat every other animal, just not this. Why can't I drink alcohol? It looks very blissful when I drink it. Allah says go have Coca-Cola, go have Pepsi, go have Sprite. Just don't drink this one. You know what I mean? And you feel like you're at a loss. Some people do. I personally have never felt at a loss for abstaining from these things, but some people do. And the point is that in this dunya, the struggle we go through, it will not feel as though this never-ending struggle if you can fixate your mind to that final moment. That final moment where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the day of judgment, I will resurrect you and I will ask you what you've done. And based on these actions, you will see the outcome. If you can focus yourself on the result more so than the moment, then you are able to accomplish great things. So this is the first lesson that I've reflected upon this Ramadan, for us to understand that we are far more powerful than we think. We are able to do things, but only when we are able to see the outcome. When we see iftar at the outcome, we are able to do it. Whereas someone who has never even tried, has never even engaged in, testing themselves, doesn't have any kind of spiritual belief guiding them, they will always look at it and say, I don't know how you Muslims do it. So immediately they're disqualifying their position. So do you qualify yourself for that, and you will be able to achieve it. This works in this dunya. This works in terms of being a good Muslim and a practicing Muslim with the sense of the akhirah. Not only that, brothers and sisters, I have seen time and time again, when I qualify myself for something that I want even in life, for example, a job opportunity or something that I want, then when I qualify and I don't psych myself out, a lot of people say, well, do I really deserve this? I think there's people far more qualified than I am. No, when you qualify yourself through that lens and you see yourself, you can start seeing yourself in that position in life, then also you will see a similar effect. And that's what Ramadan is trying to tell you. Ramadan is trying to tell you one of the many things that you can do is discipline the mind, focus on the outcome, and you will achieve it. That's one of the million things that you can derive from the month of Ramadan. Now, the next thing is understanding this age of anxiety that we are in. We are in the age of anxiety, especially with the coronavirus around. But before the coronavirus even came, when I deal with the youth, these people have anxieties, thinking that, will I make it in life? Am I good enough? What if I'm not? And especially for the young men out there, my sympathies go out, not because I am a man, that's not why, but the pressure on a young man, especially a young Muslim man, who is trying to abstain from these things. And in order for him to attain anything in life, he must be able to accomplish great things until, for example, he can get married. Otherwise, nobody wants to give their daughter to an unaccomplished male. And at the same time, they have all of these urges and they have all of these anxieties that go around with trying to be a good mu'min, trying to uphold good values. And whenever they try to uphold good values, they hurt the young man. They don't try and help him, and they always make the young good men feel bad about the actions of all the bad men. Like, oh, I had a bad experience with a bad father. I had a bad experience with a bad brother, and therefore we have to apologize for all the bad things that men have done throughout civilization. It's almost as though this generation is like a time for revenge against all the times that men may have been cruel to the opposite gender. And with all these movements, like, you bad men are evil, men are so bad, men are trying to take, men are misogynist, men. But in reality, the man is a guardian of the household. The man is a guardian of the woman. And so therefore, the man has to uphold a certain stature, and he has to get himself somewhere. But then when he tries, oh, you're trying to take control of me, you're trying to ruin my life. So I can especially with the brothers. I know the sisters also have it very rough, but especially with the brothers in this age of anxiety to try and get a grip on life, it is extremely difficult to uphold values without being tested. Someone once said, um, being a good person is like playing a video game on the hardest difficulty. Meanwhile, everybody around you is playing the video game on easy. So the video game being your life. You trying to be a good person means you will take the harder route in every situation. You will try and take the more moral route, whereas the evil route, or the easy one, or the bad one that doesn't take morals into consideration, is very quick. It's easy. You don't have to think about it much. You just do it. So that's the difference. But the reward is far greater. I don't think in the end of a video game you get a reward other than wasting your time. But in this dunya, in this life, you will actually attain a much, much higher reward for playing in this difficulty, for choosing to live life in this kind of difficulty. So one of the things in the age of anxiety that I've come to realize that we live in today is the outcome is so crucial of whether or not you will make it. But this worry does not have any sense of, um, you don't have enough intellect, you don't have enough knowledge to worry. That's the one thing that I want to tell everyone, is that when you function in a way that tomorrow may not happen. Sorry, tomorrow is going to happen. You function in the sense that this urgency that I need to plan for tomorrow, but there's a chance that tomorrow may not come. And so that should give you more anxiety, but you don't. It doesn't bother you in that sense. So you continue on with your life knowing that tomorrow is going to come, the next 10 years is going to come, the next 20 years is going to come. And so what we've been taught when we were kids is that, okay, now you're 4 or 5 years old, you're going to go to junior kindergarten. Okay, then what? Okay, so now you're going to go into grade school. Okay, now what? Now you're going to go in high school. And make sure your grades are good in high school, because it shows which college you're going to go to. Okay, what do I do after high school? Well, now you have to go to college and university, and it's important which one you go to because it'll determine the outcome of your entire life. Okay, now what? Well, now you're going to go ahead and get a really good job, or you're going to go to graduate school and whatever. You're going to get a really good job after all this studying. And then you say, well, okay, now what? And then you say, well, now you can live your life. Well, okay, but I never heard any mention of happiness throughout this entire journey. So, and that's why you find the whole psychological condition of the midlife crisis. Because a midlife crisis is where you see an old man or an old woman behaving like they're in their 20s or 16. Like, you'll see a 70-year-old man in a red Mustang driving around, and you say, oh, wow, we would think that he would be in some sort of like a Buick or like a old man like car, but he's driving a sports car, and it's not good for the neck. The turbulence is a lot. Why is he doing that? Because, well, one day what happened, brothers and sisters, is that he woke up and the individual felt cheated. He said, my whole life I was told to live a certain way, and to be honest, I don't feel that different, because I was told once I go through these segments in life, I'm going to finally settle down and be happy, but I'm not. And it was always as if, like if you've ever seen in the cartoons when they're sitting on a donkey, and the donkey is the donkey is walking, and they're sitting on a donkey, and they have a stick with a carrot attached to it, and the donkey's constantly walking towards that carrot, trying to get it, because obviously a donkey can't see past the carrot, because of its intellectual capacity in the cartoons. And so obviously when one day it stops, the donkey goes, I walked 10,000 steps, but at the end it was just a carrot. It was just a carrot. And now that I had it, I want another carrot. It wasn't that special, and I worked really hard for it. And that's the age of anxiety that we live in, that you are always taught to live somewhere that you're not, because you're always determined for tomorrow, not knowing if tomorrow will actually come. And you take that anxiety out and you fill it with other anxieties as to what tomorrow is going to be like. And so therefore you're taking all these actions towards it. And when tomorrow does come and you see all the years you put into it, then you feel that you're not young anymore. You kind of feel old. You sit down and you say, I'm making the money, I have the house, I have the family, but I kind of feel empty. What was the point? At this stage in people's lives, that's the moment they feel cheated, because the entire time that they were living this life, they were never present. They were never present. They were never in the moment, because their anxiety pressed them to think about tomorrow, this next assignment, this next exam, this next job interview, this next investment, this next purchase. All the time fooling the human being into thinking that once this event happens, I'll be happier. Once this event happens, I'll be happier. Once this event happens. You didn't need those events to be happy. It was in front of you all along. So you sit down and you think about it. Well, if I choose to live in the present and then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and look around for a second and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, see all of that He has given you. Just sit down and think about it. Then you would realize that happiness is your choice. You had so much to be happy about, but you ignored it, thinking about the next accomplishment. Not to say that you shouldn't be goal-driven. Not at all. You should be goal-driven, definitely. But live in the present. If you live in the present and your thoughts are within the present, then you can take care of your present, and you will be able to achieve those things when the time comes. A lot of youth come and ask me, brother, what do you think of early marriage? My answer to that is, how anxious are you to get married? If you're really anxious, I suggest that you're not ready. But if you are in a position where you are content with yourself, you're in a position where you are actively working on bettering yourself, you're in a position where you have done great work and you are now ready to settle down and bring someone else without the anxiety of, I need it, then I would say you're ready. Why? Because the anxiety, you see, this is why marriages fall apart. The anxiety of getting married, for instance, causes you to get married to fulfill an anxiety. And therefore, you will realize that that person you married did not make you happy, because you thought that anxiety being answered will give you happiness. But they don't, because those people, that the person that you marry is someone with a different upbringing. It's completely different than who you are. And while you might be compatible, you should never rest your contentment of your being on another person. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلَّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةٍ الْمَوْتِ, every soul shall taste death. So therefore, even the perfect marriage you dream of is temporary. And then Allah is trying to tell you that focus now in this moment. How much are you with me now? When Allah says in the Quran, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ, He says, verily in my remembrance shall the believer know peace. Shall the heart be mutma'in, be at ease. So in your day-to-day actions, while you're always forecasting the future outcome, future outcome, future outcome of everything, how much of it are you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then you'll realize the more you are in the present, the happier you'll become, because you no longer have a dangling carrot in your stick. The carrot's already in your hand. Now, there's a funny story about letting go about the world that you live in. And letting go of the world does not mean that you should not enjoy your life. You can enjoy your life. You can find the love of your life. You can go on to vacation in Europe and wherever you like to go. Nobody said don't. But it is not that you should allow it to control you. As Imam Ali alayhi salam says, is that living an ascetic life, a non-worldly life, is not that you shouldn't own anything. Own what you want, but you should not allow that which you own to own you instead. Meaning that I can't be happy until I get that car. I can't be happy until I get that house. I can't be happy until I get that job. I can't be happy until I'm rich. I can't be happy until I get my degree. I can't be happy until I pass my exam with flying colors. Now you're allowing that worldly temporary thing to own you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Malik al-Qulub. He is the owner of our souls. So therefore you will keep consistently fighting that uphill battle, looking for that happiness, when all along your heart was ready for happiness. We just had to allow the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shine on it. So there's an interesting story about the worldly life, and it's about, imagine when you're first born, you are kicked off a cliff and you're falling, and you don't know when you're going to hit the bottom. But when you hit the bottom, that's it. That's game over. Because you're facing upward, right? So you're falling, you're facing upward, looking at the sky, you're not looking down. And as you are kicked off that cliff, a piece of rock falls down with you. And while you're falling from that cliff, you hold on to that rock. But the rock is not doing anything for you because you're both headed for the same destination. So one may ask, well, why are you holding on to it? And then the human being will start thinking of all these reasons, all these excuses as to why you should hold that rock. But in reality, when you're true to yourself, you'll understand that rock will not help you as you're heading down to your destination. That rock is the dunya. Dunya is the world. Dunya comes from the word adna, means the lowest. قُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ. This is the lowest point of the earth, as Allah says in the Quran. Dunya comes from that word, like it's not that big of a deal. It's pretty low if you think about it. But you hold on to it and you grab onto it and you have this anxiety about letting go. But then the story says, once you let go of the rock and you accept where you stand, that you are on your way. Every single one of us are on our way to our deaths. And I let go. And the anticipation of losing that rock leaves. Then only then you will anticipate your happiness. For Imam Ali alayhi salam says a very beautiful line. He says, it's not the value of water, but the fear of thirst. It is not the worth of life, but the fear of death. And it is not the need of friendship, but the need of trust. Sit down and contemplate on those words, brothers and sisters. Sit down and contemplate on those words that Amir al-Mu'mineen is trying to tell you. And so you ask me then, while you're telling me to take everything so easy, brother, what about all the bad things that might happen? What do I do then? That also adds on to my anxieties. And again, once again, you must understand that something that may appear bad may not actually be bad, and something that may be good may not appear to be good. For in the month of Ramadan, when I look at it, I always look at it with this apathy, unfortunately. I say, oh, Ramadan's coming. I got to fast for 30 days. But when I'm in it, I don't feel it as bad. See, the anticipation of Ramadan coming is far worse than actually being in it, because it doesn't bother you as much. I'm on my 28th day. I don't know about the rest of you, but it passed fairly quickly for me. I kept myself busy. I did my tasks, whatever Allah asked of me, I felt like I accomplished. And therefore, I feel that, it was short. It was a short Ramadan this year. It wasn't something that I really thought about while I was in it. I didn't let it drag on. And if you notice, if you keep anticipating, just like that final iftar, if you keep thinking about it, the more dreadful it becomes. Yes. So now you ask me, well, what about the bad things in life? What do I do? There's a very interesting story about a Chinese farmer. A Chinese farmer was once he had a farm and he had a horse. One morning he wakes up and he sees that the horse has gone missing. And so when he wakes up and he sees that, his neighbors come to him and say, "Oh, your horse left. It's lost. Isn't that unfortunate?" And so the farmer would go on to reply, "Maybe." The next morning, the farmer wakes up. He sees that his not only is his horse back, but it's back with seven other wild horses that followed it back home. So the farmer captures all of them, keeps it on his farm, and then the neighbors come to him and say, "Wow, that's quite lucky." And then the farmer replies by saying, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son goes out to tame one of those horses. And as he's taming them, one of the horses knocks him off the back and he falls and he breaks his leg. And the neighbors come and say, "Oh no, your son broke his leg. That's pretty bad. That's unlucky. I'm very sorry to hear that." And so the farmer replies by saying, "Maybe." And a week later, the Chinese conscription officers come to enlist his son to war because there was a certain age limit that his son fell in. And so they knocked. They came in. They said, "We're here to enlist your son for the war." They saw his son's leg is broken, and they realized that he's no good. So they said, "Okay, your son doesn't have to come to the war. He can stay home." And they left. And so the neighbor said, "What was all that about?" And the farmer said, "Nothing. They came to enlist my son, and they saw his leg was broken, so they left him alone." And so the neighbor said, "Gee, that's pretty fortunate." And the farmer says, "Guess what? Maybe." The moral of the story here is that you don't know the happenings of something good nor bad in your life. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Baqarah, verse 216, and there is something that you like, but it is bad for you. And sorry, he says there is something that you hate, that you dislike, but Allah knows it to be good for you. And there is something that you enjoy and you want, but indeed it is bad for you. Indeed, Allah knows that which you do not know. Allah knows everything that you know. So it goes back to, even if you feel like something bad has happened in your life, perhaps it's something you dislike, but Allah knows better. Allah is A'lam. Allah knows all. So relieve yourself on the anxiety. I have seen many, many, many times a bad situation come about, a situation that I thought that there's no way out of, no way out of. But I entrusted it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I said, there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason. There is something that I'm not seeing. Allah is trying to test me. And so when I look at it from that lens, all of a sudden, then I can now see, they say, if you leave everything in God's hands, you will see God's hand in everything. And therefore, I would see that even the worst situations would come to close in such a swift and easy manner that I wondered 5 years when I look back at it, I say, remember when I was 5 years ago, how much stress I had over this small thing? And now I look in the present and I say, I have such bigger problems to deal with. But again, I say, well, is it going to matter in 5 years? In 5 years, I'm going to look back and say, probably not that big of a deal. In the beginning of Ramadan, you look at it, you say, look at the 30 days I have to fast. This is going to be difficult. But at the end of it, when you look back and you say, you know what? I did it. It wasn't that bad. I did miss my life, but it wasn't that bad. Fasting was actually kind of fun, being around family and letting life slow down a bit, and really sitting down and building my relationship with this Quran that I leave on my shelves every year that I don't pay attention to. It was fun. I felt that it's Allah coming to me and He is asking me to remember Him. And that's what Ramadan is, brothers and sisters. Ya ayyuhan nas qad aqbala alaykum. Oh, you who forget. I am coming to you now. This was the holy month of Ramadan. Brothers and sisters, in these 30 days that we have spent fasting, we have disciplined ourselves. We have joined each other night after night, expressing our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, eager to increase our knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Know that this does not have to end in the month of Ramadan. For this 30 days could have developed our habits to reciting Quran more frequently, to controlling our anger more frequently, to controlling our desires or addictions such as smoking, etc. And also, it has taught us how to view life. And that's how I feel my reflections personally have ended this Ramadan. With that being said, I won't take up any more of your precious time, and I'll hand it off to our beloved Sheikh Bahar Najat tonight. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين والحمد لله رب العالمين.